Hello, Notorious Bakersfield fans. This is Robert Peterson from the Notorious Bakersfield podcast. In case you haven't heard, there is a newly released book titled Notorious Bakersfield, the book. I'll let the motorcycles go by. The book corresponds to several of the podcast stories. And I'm launching this video series to orient readers, podcast listeners to some of the locations that are depicted in the book. These are all true stories that occurred from Bakersfield's past. Stories are pulled from the headlines of the Bakersfield Californian. And I just wanted to visit these locations so that you understand where they occurred all those years ago. This particular location on the corner of I Street and 24th Street is the first story in the book and the first episode of the Notorious Bakersfield podcast. It's catty corner from the Del Taco in downtown Bakersfield. But the story for this chapter, the first chapter, is titled The Murder of the Two Fairies. And it is the double murder of a mother named Fairy Cornell and her 13-year-old daughter named Fairy Gerace. And it occurred in 1926, almost 100 years ago. This location looks very different than it did 100 years ago. Back in 1926, this was mostly residential. Today, it's mostly commercial, and it's one of Bakersfield's most heavily traveled arteries in downtown Bakersfield. It's just a block off of Chester Avenue. It's behind that furniture store on the corner of Chester and 24th Street. And it's always going out of business, starting business, going out of business for as long as I can remember that furniture store. But right behind it sat a house on this corner in 1926, and it was the location of a double murder. And you can listen to the story on the Notorious Bakersfield podcast, or you can read it in the newly released Notorious Bakersfield, the book. I'm walking over to it to get a copy of the book. And you can order it online at Amazon.com. Just search Notorious Bakersfield, the book. There it is. So I'm going to be doing this for probably each chapter, just so you can orient yourself and know what the location looks like today. And you can think, oh, I've driven by that. I know where that is. Just like this location. You've probably driven by it 100 times. Never knew one of Bakersfield's most notorious murders occurred here almost 100 years ago.